I'm moving. Just welcome to Judith who's just joining us, so that's really great. So, what have we got tonight? Well, we've got our usual philosophical beginning in a moment, and we're going to be looking at the last of the 5 senses that we've been focusing on as we've gone through these series, and a little bit on that. Then we're going to combine Unleash the Walker tonight with a dusk story. You know, instead of having the 2 separate features, we're going to squash them together and say, instead of being a dawn story, tonight's a dusk story. So that's kind of cool. We're going to have a little look at old wives' tales because, and I mean, not that I'd like to make any aspersions about old wives, but they do sometimes give us some messages that kind of like actually kind of make sense. So we've got a couple of those we're going to have a look at. Ross is coming to the end of this first tranche of stories of long distance walking. And tonight we've got, we're going to look at some of the kit, that you use, because as we found out the first time we went out, if you haven't got the right kit, within a short space of time, everything aches in a way it doesn't need to. So, for example, we got one of those. We'll tell you about that later. So there's that. And then after that, because Monday is the winter solstice, I'm going to spend a couple of moments just thinking about that and what it actually means and how it was celebrated back in the good old days, as it were, or should still be maybe celebrated today. And then we'll finish off. We've got the competition. We'll talk about, obviously, the site as it's going to become in January. We'll have our competition, and we're going to finish off, as we always do, with a little bit of philosophy. So we've got a fair amount in there, as ever. We'd love you to get involved with the chat. Ross is still monitoring that, and he'll still interrupt me from time to time, I'm sure, and tell us what you've put in. So that would be absolutely fantastic. But other than that, we'll probably crack on and see what we can do to get this show rolling. So I'd like to start off, if you like. We've been talking a lot in the last week about cycles and how things always keep moving. Well, we tend to go from one to the other the whole time. And I want to think just for a few minutes about duality. That concept that you can't have good without having bad or evil. The two go together. You know, you have to have those opposites. You can't have tall without having short because there's no reference point to change those things. You can't have left, that's my left, as opposed to right, which is probably your left at the moment. But you have to have those opposites. You have to have the times when you are on top of the world and absolutely excited, because you need those to appreciate that they're not the times when you're unhappy or the world seems to be against you and things don't work out. You know, you need to have times of unrest so that when you get through those and you get times of peace and calm and happiness, you enjoy those for what they are. You know, it's having those dualities that is a vital part of life. And in fact, reading a book the other day, and it said, put on a piece of paper, make it really bold and stand out, and put something on there that makes it a really special thing. Print it out, laminate it, put it somewhere where you can see it. And what you need to write on that is, and all this will pass, because whatever you're in at the moment, it is not ever the end. Duality. Amazing. Just remember that one. So,
just before you continue, you've got something come back in the chat from Judith, one of our members, who's just said duality. Really good point, Simon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, it's always nice to get off to a good start. Thank you. So, comes to taste. Duality, good point. I guess you've got to have things that taste horrible so that you know you're enjoying things that taste good. But taste, let's just think about taste for a minute, because it's possibly, if we hadn't had a sense of taste, it's very, very possible that civilization might never have got going. Think, every single time we want to get to know somebody, even if it's in business or going out on a date, you know, very near the beginning of that relationship, we'll go out and we'll have a breakfast, or we'll have a lunch, or we'll go out to dinner. And we sit down and we talk. And how often have you been sat with somebody and it's kind of a slightly uneasy silence or slightly disjointed conversation, but the minute you start eating, all of a sudden it's much easier to talk? Which is probably why networking meetings generally tend to be focused around a meal. They certainly were in the old days, in the old normal. Taste is vitally important. I think most of the things that we eat come from outside. I say most because you can never be completely sure these days exactly where all the food has come from. But most food comes from outside. You know, if it was once moving in an animal, it was outside. It might have started life if it was planted in a greenhouse, but mostly it's outside. And where do we generally think food tastes best? The minute we can go outside, we have a picnic, or we go out for a barbecue, or we eat al fresco. When we get the chance, we go outside. There are certain flavours that somehow are right and best outside. Sloe gin, for one. We'll probably mention sloe gin a little bit later. It kind of fits into our old wives' tales. But it doesn't taste quite the same when you drink it indoors. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with drinking it indoors, but it's better outside. It's one of those flavours. You know, there are so many things associated with outside. But it's funny, how good do you think taste would be if we didn't have a sense of smell? How many times are our taste buds enlivened because we've smelt something? You know, you walk into a house that's got food cooking and immediately you become hungry. Well, I presume you do, unless it's, but you know, you come in, it's one of the things, we put garlic in our roast potatoes, not because it does anything to flavour, but it kicks up the smell, and the smell enlivens the taste buds, and we want to eat the roast dinner because there's nothing better than a decent roast dinner. Absolutely amazing. Mind you, there is a flip side, because when I was in Russia, they had a food called Grechka, and the taste was a really good diet recipe, because every time I smelt it and put it in my mouth, I didn't want to eat anything. But there you go, taste, absolutely vital. So we're going to move swiftly on, because otherwise I won't shut up. So we're going to pass on to Ross, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Unleash the Walker and our trip from St Margaret's to Kingsdown. Over to you, mate.
Yeah, nice. Today's Unleashing the Walker is essentially a spontaneous trip that me and Dad had, where we just decided that we wanted to go and walk dogs, but we wanted to go somewhere a little bit different, and we didn't want to just do a normal loop. We wanted to go from one end to another, almost like long distance walking, but short distance. And we decided that we were going to go from St Margaret's to Kingsdown, because the original plan was to go to Walmer, but we're running out of daylight this time of year, and trying to get some brilliant dust pictures and stuff to show everyone, we were running out of time. So no, we did get some amazing videos, and you can see behind us in the videos the rain clouds. And talk of time and walks perfectly, we managed to time it spot on, because as we got into the car, it hammered down. And we might be pulling fires ourselves occasionally. For those of you who don't remember what that is somebody who likes to walk in the rain. But no, without further ado, I will play the video.
Hi, it's Simon and Ross, the Simple Life Circle. What we're doing on this walk is one of our specialities. We've both brought out our cars. We parked Ross's at Kingsdown Rifle Range, picked him up, and now we've both gone to St Margaret's, and we've parked the car up by the Second World War Memorial, and now we're walking back to Kingsdown. Now, I appreciate it's a bit difficult if you've only got one car, but it's a really good way of determining how you walk somewhere, because we've got the wind behind us. That's always easier. And as you can see, the sun behind us, or the sky behind us, is pretty spectacular at the moment. The sun will set behind us this evening. Obviously, it goes into the west. But we're actually out on the cliffs. And if I spin around here, sorry, Ross, you'll see we've got the sea behind us, which is absolutely spectacular. It's a lovely place to walk at this time of day. So, farmland to the side, but let me catch up with Ross.
No, this is a walk that I did when I was about 14, 15. I walked from Dover to Deal with some of my friends from school. We left and went to Walmer Station with the 10:30 train, and we finally got back to Walmer Station at 4:30. We tried it about 6 months before and didn't finish it because we ran out of daylight and everyone wasn't anticipating the journey to be as long as it was, so we ended up getting picked up at St Margaret's. But we did finally complete it, and we got back to Walmer Station, which is just around the corner from my friends' houses, and we completed it in 6 hours, bang on, because the next train that came through was at 4:30, and that was the one that came past me over there. It is a great walk to do, especially in the summer, and you can cycle it, you can walk it, you can run it. There's so many different options as to what you could do with it. But no, this is brilliant out here, and even this time of year, it's a little bit chilly because you're on the cliffs. But you dress for the weather, and it is absolutely brilliant out here. So thank you very much.
Indeed, so we're going to cut off now, but we're going to see you in a minute when we're a bit further along, because the sun's going to go down before we get to Kingsdown. So instead of doing a dawn story, this could well be a dusk story. We'll see you in a little while. So we've just come away from the golf course. We're coming into Kingsdown. You can see these two kind of fallen sections of cliff where they will have at some point when the chalk will just split and the whole lot will just crash down below. Because chalk is pretty solid, but when it starts to crack, then it goes. So I'm going to recklessly take the path along the edge. As I say, you can see these two sections where the chalk has broken away. And bit by bit, these cliffs are coming back again. There are times when you go down to St Margaret's or even Kingsdown, and you actually see these big piles of chalk where it's all crashed down to the ground. Because chalk's pretty solid, but once it starts to go, it goes. So there you go. So we're approaching Kingsdown now, and behind us you can actually see Deal, the lights in the distance. So we thought we'd do a little shot because we're about to run out of light completely. It's just been amazing. As we've got up and down hill, you can hear the sound of the sea rise and fall. A bit like a tide in itself, I suppose. But yeah, we're almost there. So we thought we'd just do a little video, but partly because of the lights behind us. It's the first time we've seen the lights as we've come over this rise. But if you turn around with us, look, here we go. Look at the colour of the sky behind us. So that's another skill when you're walking, is think about what the weather's doing, where the rain is, and where it's going to go. Because if you walk with the wind from behind you, then the rain will chase you rather than walking into it. We've had one or two examples of that. You got anything to add, mate?
Not this time, I haven't, no.
Because I was just thinking of that time that you told us when you were out with your mates one time and it started raining. And as usual, most people go, it's raining, we're going to go indoors. But if you look at where the wind's coming, sometimes you can see from behind the rain. If you can see behind the rain and know what's coming, you know whether you're in for a real torrential downpour or whether within the space of about 20 minutes it'll come and it'll go. Because sometimes just by finding some shelter, you can outdo the rain for that short period, still enjoy the outdoors, still enjoy that dose of fresh air, and then carry on afterwards as if nothing had ever happened. So there you go. Little outdoor hints and tips, would you believe? We'll catch you later. So here I am. I've just got home. Ross has taken off to Tesco's and the heavens have opened. So those clouds you saw coming in behind us, we got our timing spot on. Just love it when you can work with the countryside and you can work with the cycles and you have a little bit of knowledge and you can plan your experiences. Because sometimes we love being in the rain, sometimes we don't. And today, well, we got it just right. Brilliant. See you soon.
So there you go. There is our Unleash Inner Walker for this week. And there is essentially our dawn story for this week. As you can see, we managed to time that spot on. It couldn't have been timed any better. And I think we both, ourselves and the dogs, were happy with the fact of how we timed that. And the fact that by the time we got to the car, got changed out of our walking boots in some nice clean shoes to drive home in, that we were still dry and the dogs were still dry. And we could still appreciate the weather for what it was.
That's brilliant. One thing I was thinking when I watched this the video through the first time, I was talking about the cliffs and the way that the cliffs pull away and erode. You'll have probably heard the phrase that we live, or a little bit further west from here, is the Weald of Kent. Now, the Weald is an old word that comes from Wealden Dome. There was, thousands of years ago, a big, big chalk mound which stretched, if you like, from London all the way across to Paris, okay? This big chalk kind of dome, to be fair. And as we moved away from Europe during the Ice Ages and prehistory and all those times, that put a gap between the two sections of as the dome kind of pulled apart and the channel cut through, which is why we've got Dover Cliffs, which spread along past Ramsgate and kind of go down as we get to the other side of Folkestone and Hythe. And then there are similar cliffs throughout quite a lot of the edge of France. And it is actually, as I say, as the water level rises, as our poles cool off, so that there's more pressure and more activity from the sea as it gets rough up with the winds behind it and the moon pulling it as well. And with all of that pressure, bit by bit, the chalk cliffs, because chalk's porous anyway, so as rain comes down, it'll find any gaps and help push it apart. But it's actually moving around so that the cliffs are slowly, bit by bit, moving back. But it's all come from that initial Wealden Dome that we had. That's also why our bluebells, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more again in the spring because I like that, are different to the bluebells throughout the rest of the world because they've been geographically isolated for thousands of years. So they've changed and they've mutated and they've evolved slightly differently. But that's the reason why we need to make sure when we're buying bulbs in the autumn that we buy English bulbs. Makes no sense, really.
As you were saying about the cliffs falling apart, strangely enough, it's a bit of an odd thing to be monitoring, but where I did my dawn story in Kingsdown, on the rifle range, they've got these mounds all the way along, which you have to walk up and down as you're going along. And one of the mounds has been slowly falling apart for a little while because it's all chalk based underneath. Because they pulled when the rifle range was in use, they pulled the chalk out of the cliff and used it to build these mounds so they can use them as barriers and kind of trench-like, look-alike kind of things. And there's a piece of plank of wood that's been in this chalk mound that's been slowly degrading for ages. And I've slowly, every time I've watched it, I've gone down, every time I've been down and watched the sun come up or gone for a walk down there, I've watched this plank of wood and monitored it and seen how much further it has come out. Because it started as just a small piece of wood about this big, only a couple of centimetres at best. And then it turned into a full plank. And now that full plank has officially fallen out of the side of this chalk mound and has now been thrown as a bit of driftwood. But that's been over the case of 3 or 4 years. So it just shows that even a small area of chalk can still fall apart as well as the cliffs. It really doesn't matter.
It does. Amazing. Thank you very much there, mate. So we'll move on to our section on old wives' tales. So it's funny how little bits and pieces and historic folklore have come in and come through and have started to become called old wives' tales. I remember my father used to have a set of books, and there was old countrymen's tales, and he even had old wives' tales and old ploughmen's tales and old shepherds' tales. But old wives' tales are those ones. Why were they old wives anyway? Don't know. But it's funny. There are various old wives' tales that give us some idea of what is likely to come with our weather. So we've got a couple of videos here that we're going to play, because if you've been out in the countryside over the last month or two, you'll have noticed that everything's kind of got it a bit, well, I say wrong, but it's not totally typical. So we're going to crack straight on into the videos. Otherwise, I'm going to do what I normally do, which is tell you everything that's in the video, and then you'll hear it all again in the video. So I'm going to try and turn that around tonight, and we're going to play the video. And if I've missed it out, then I'll tell you after the video, because that'd be better. That's me showing signs of learning. So let's crack on with the first video, which is, it's about field fairs. Now, this is a very high-tech version of how we show you what a field fair looks like, because I do mention it in the video, but this is a field fair. It's a kind of thrush. As you can see, it's got a grey head and a very much whiter body. So just take a little note, because I didn't manage to get quite that close with my camera. Field fairs, please, Ross.
It's not that one. Oh dear, what's going on? Right.
Starting to sound a little bit, I'm a celebrity, get out of here. It's you.
Hi, this is Simon. Now, all you're going to see probably is a lot of black dots in the air.
I've got a black screen, Ross.
Dots.
Right, let's try again. Let's stop that and try again. Oh, no, it's disappeared. Right, okay. Let's just try doing it this way.
A good bit of technology.
It is the wonders of technology. Can you see it?
Hi, this is Simon.
I've only got sound.
Right, okay. What I will do then is, if we move on to the next video, I will play that, and then I will try and rectify that in the background whilst that is deciding what it likes to do.
Okay.
So,
are we looking at Horbury's and Slows?
it's Horbury's and Slows whilst I try and rectify that video.
Here we go.
Simon here, Simple Life Circle. These black silhouettes you can see beside me are sloes. Sloes are the fruit of the blackthorn tree. They flower. The fruit normally comes in September. And in September we get out and we harvest the sloes. We generally get a couple of pounds, and then we mix them with gin and some sugar, and we make sloe gin, which we then drink at Christmas. Today is the 28th of November, and the countryside is still thick with sloes. They're all over the place. I've only brought the camera in really close so that you can see them. But if I was to move it a bit further away, you probably could see that this bush is absolutely stacked full of them. It's full of sloes, which is bonkers. So, Simon, Simple Life Circle, Autumn Oldness, Part 2. Behind me are hawberries. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the countryside and the hedgerows have been red this year. Hawberries have been in larger numbers than I can almost ever remember. Now, I'm not entirely sure what we'd ever do with Horbury's. I know that I've heard people making jam out of them. But here we are, it's the end of November, and they are still painting the countryside red. Wow.
So, again, we've had a bumper harvest of countryside fruits. I'm not entirely sure. I've heard people make Horbury jam. I'm not sure if there's anything else that people generally make with it. Maybe you know better than I. Sloes, funny, sloes are a very sour tasting fruit. They're not that nice on their, in fact, they're pretty unpleasant on their own. But as I said in the video, if you mix them with gin and you have the right amount of sugar, they taste absolutely heavenly. And it's a real outdoors drink. It's one of those that definitely tastes better outside. You know, a bit like sausages at a barbecue. They have a flavour that they never kind of seem to quite have indoors. We've had a bumper harvest, blackberries. There have been blackberries. The season has been really long. Loads and loads of them. They haven't all tasted brilliant, but there's been a vast, vast number. Notice something in the chat there, Ross.
Yeah, it's another just comment saying, I've heard that a lot of berries in autumn will mean a harsh winter. This is probably an old wives' tale, though. Any truth in it?
Well, as we've said, this is a section all about old wives' tales. There may well be, but we're going to look a little further first.
We've just had another one coming as well saying, I've still got strawberries on a few plants here, not tasting so nice now. I believe we've still got raspberries as well down into the garden. They don't look very tasty and I wouldn't want to try them, but we do still have some.
Absolutely. You know, the crop this year has been much, much bigger. We've had a vast, vast fruit harvest. So at this point, can we see if the field fair video will play, Ross?
With a bit of luck now.
Yes, we've got it. A little bit of wind noise at the end, but apart from that, pretty cool actually, especially that last end section.
All you're going to see probably is a lot of black dots in the air. These black dots are field fares, and I have never seen quite such a large flock of field fares. There's probably 200 or 300 of them. They're very much like thrushes, but they've got much more of a kind of grey and a white tint to them. And they come to us in the winter from Scandinavia, places up in the north. There are some more up in the trees just in front of us. Now, whether it's true or not, but it could just be that that's another of the old wives' tales telling us that we're going to have a real hard winter. I mean, let's think about it. There's been that bumper crop of Horbury's and blackberries, and if the temperature is pushing in from the north, that's pushing birds this way. Winter migrants coming down in larger numbers, and I have never ever seen a flock of field fares as big as this one. So who knows what the old wives have got for us? But even if it's nothing, it's still a great start that side.
Well, so looking back to that phrase about old wives' tales, it's suggesting that as well as having that bumper crop, and I don't know if you noticed in the video, we had that the hedge along the side there was painted red with Horbury's. But to have, I mean, I've known small flocks of field fares come through, but I've never seen one as big as that. And generally we get them that large when the weather from Scandinavia, which is coming down our way, is pushing them more than it does in other years. So whether we are totally into the concept of old wives' tales, whether there is some scientific basis, I'm not entirely sure. But when we're talking about this in January and February, then we're going to know whether or not the old wives were correct or whether they had it completely wrong. But what we've got for you now...
Just before we start that, we've had a couple of things come back in the chat. Following on from talking about strawberries and raspberries, does this mean the bees, more bees back out with all the extra fruit still around?
Certainly still seeing bees flying around at the moment. I'm going to go out to the garden. They're still doing their thing. We've got roses that are still in flower. We've got salvias that are still in flower. Our choisia has still got flowers on it. So there are still flowers out there for them. The berries won't help the bees as much because obviously they need nectar and they need pollen, but they are still about. But I actually exited from my office yesterday. A queen wasp had come out and was flying up and down on the window. And much as when I understood less, the temptation would have been to have given her a big whacking, I actually opened up all the doors and gently, I tried to encourage her out, but she wouldn't go. So in the end, I had to throw out the tea that was left in the mug, trap her in the mug with a piece of paper, take her outside and then eject her into the air and vanish back in the office in case she got annoyed with me. So there are very definitely still insects and bugs out there doing their thing. But obviously bees need to have flowers to be able to feed. So they're still there, but it's not exclusive. Speak English. It's not exclusively due to the berries.
Another question as well. Are hawberries from the hawthorn?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, another indication that we were going to get a bumper crop, if you like, is obviously hawberries come from hawthorn, sloes come from blackthorn. And if we go back to February this year, when the blackthorn was in blossom, there was, again, you walk down a path alongside a hedge and it would be white in February. And again, this year, they were very, very white. And then we came to May blossom, which is the blossom of the hawthorn tree again. And it really, really spread out in vast amounts. You know, again, the hedgerows turned white in a way that they haven't done before. And I keep finding myself asking, with the year that we've had, has it been so brilliant because there's been so much less traffic in the air and on the roads that has actually let the air clear up? And has the world actually been saying to us, if you just ease off a little bit, do you know what? I can still deliver for you big time. But if you've got an awful lot of blossom, you're going to get an awful lot of fruit. So the whole thing keeps going. It goes around in cycles, you know, big up this bit, you'll big up that bit. And each time you do that, you increase your crops and whatever else. But as long as the weather's playing ball, and face it, we had the most amazing spring into summer, and then we had the wettest autumn almost in record as well. So the whole thing kind of progresses onwards. Long answer, once again.
Just a couple more as well. Everyone seems to have the old wives' tales this evening. Old wives or old wives' tales, depends how you understand the title. I did notice in the spring there are a lot of May blossom. There was a considerable amount of May blossom this year. And the final one is here in East Yorkshire, the fields are surrounded with hawthorn hedging and they are full of berries, far more than have been known for many years here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Your bit about, Simon, the bit about the old wives' tales. You go, old wives' tales. And I think, well, why have they got to be old wives? Could it not be old in their ancient tales of wives?
It could be.
Reading it, do you know what I mean? So it could
be exactly as you say. Is it not actually old wives'
just
tales?
old tales of what from wives? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Young wives might be just as knowledgeable if they passed it on.
It's just it struck me just when you said, so the old wives might be right. And I thought, okay.
I do love a good bit of inflection.
But yeah, the hawthorns here, I mean, every field is surrounded by these hedgerows, but they have been red. And although I've only been here a year and a half, it's my second winter, and there was nothing last year. And it's something that struck me driving around the lanes. It's just red. It's beautiful, but they've also talked about a polar winter, haven't they? That's supposedly coming.
Indeed, which might be the reasoning behind the field fairs.
Yeah. Well, here we're getting an awful lot of the winter birds in bigger and bigger flocks. And I'm not far from Spurn Point.
Right.
Which is the migration point up here. So we're getting a lot of the flocks coming and going. So it's quite interesting to watch, but they are getting bigger.
That is, absolutely. And I mean, I think it could also be the same reason why we had jasmine and honeysuckle has been sent in large amounts again. Like I can't remember, to the point where I've been out walking and it's just stopped me in my tracks. So yeah, there's an awful lot of clues there. Right.
But the weather is also through the year has been very, it's what we call growing weather, where there's been a lot of damp mornings.
Absolutely.
And then hot days. So it's helped rather than just be a heat wave and a freeze. You've got to.
Right, I'm sorry to cut you off, Lucy. It could go on for hours. I know I could, and I'm sure that we could, but we need to crack on. Otherwise, we're going to run seriously over schedule. But there's a last little twist that I want to add to this kind of strange plants and strange weather. You see, we're a big fan of Mahonia. And Mahonia is generally a really bright yellow flowering plant that we get in winter. Now, normally it comes out in flower in January. So we've got a little video about Mahonia. Just a message to Ross, cut the end of it off because there's a sales pitch which we really don't need. But let's go for it.
Simon here. I want to tell you a little bit about Mahonia. Mahonia is the yellow plant you can see just behind me, or in between me and the eagle. Mahonia is it's a January flowering plant. And it looks fantastic. It's got these bright yellow flowers and they last for 3 or 4 weeks in January. They are most amazing. One of those plants that's really, really time specific. But do you know what's really weird? Today is the 2nd of December and it's been in flower for a week. That means it's early and probably going to be gone by Christmas. But it's the most amazing flower to give you some real bright cheer and joy and colour in the depths of winter.
Brilliant editing there, Ross. Thank you very much, young sir. And it's not the only one. When I went out at the beginning of November thinking I'm going to trim back the viburnum before it hits into flower, it was already coming seriously into bud. You know, and it's been flowering since the beginning of November, and it's great. It usually goes right the way around to March, April. So whether or not it does that long this year, we'll have to see. But it certainly started 4, 5, 6 weeks earlier than it normally would. And I don't know what old wise tales there might be about Mahonia and viburnum coming early, but it's certainly been the most topsy-turvy growing year ever. Right, talking about growing, we must move back to the evolution of our kit through the long distance tails bit. And I'm going to pass it back over to Ross because one of the things that we managed to do so well was, well, we started off the first time we went out on an overnight stay and Ross was small and I was big and I had all the kit. We realised the first day we needed to make some big changes and Ross is going to tell you about those.
Yeah, so our first walk we ever did when we got back from Scotland and I said, Dad, can we go do the West Highland Way? Was a short trip, just the two of us over a weekend up to a campsite in Canterbury. Now, we went to a shop called Black's and we picked up a few items which they said were almost a necessity because they asked, what do you like and what would you want? And we said tea. So we picked up a gas can and a hob, which if Dad could nicely model for me. There is the small gas can, which we took with us, and we have vouched for those gas cans all the way through every single walk we have done. Normally, it's 2 gas cans per walk we have found. Generally, a full tank will last 4 to 5 days. That's including some evenings cooking dinner, that's cooking breakfast, that's tea and coffee throughout the day. And that little hob there as well, you cannot fault it. It is so powerful compared to your normal kitchen hob. It boils a kettle in about 30 seconds on a good day when you're not trying to hide the flame from the wind. That was the first ever thing we bought before we went hiking, and that was a lifesaver to us. But what wasn't a lifesaver was when we went to this on our trip in Canterbury, and we had that, and we realised when we started walking that we had no pillows. So we spent most of the night trying to walk around looking for a patch of grass that we could put our tent on where it wasn't too solid and we could make pillows out of our coats and our spare clothing. But the tent that we took with us on that first trip was Dad's old motorbike racing tent, which is huge. It's a 3-man tent, and it is not a light tent. I mean, at the time, I struggled to pick it up on its own, let alone carry it in a rucksack. Now, talking of rucksacks, if Dad could kindly model the rucksack for me, this is the rucksack that we've used on all of the hikes we have done where we've been camping and we've been living with our lives on our backs. Most of them come anywhere between 65 litres to 90 litre rucksacks. Now, I believe the one Dad is holding is 85 litre. And we found that those rucksacks, if you've got 2 people, each person can fit what they want in that rucksack, and you don't necessarily have to share too many items. But whoever pulls the short straw and gets the tent,
so it's not always what you want to carry, it's what you need to carry. And one of the stories we'll get to is the difference between the two.
But the rucksacks that we have used, we cannot fault. These are the rucksacks we have used during when we've done the long walks and we've been hiking on our own. And when we did our final walk on South Downs Way, and I became the big one and Dad became the little one with his dodgy knees, the rucksack he's got there is the one that I took. And that rucksack has now walked every single hike we have done where we have camped. It did every single preparation hike that we did. And by the looks of it, Dad's just seeing if we've got anything in there left over from last time that we did any. But what he has found is the waterproof cover. All of them come with a waterproof cover, which is a lifesaver, because there's no real way that you ever want to get to a campsite and then turn up and find out that you're wet, your bag's wet, and your dry clothes are wet, and your sleeping bag is wet. That is really not what you want. And I've used that rucksack at festivals as well. And the amount of people, when you turn up and they've got wet rucksacks and you can tell their sleeping bags are going to be wet, but I've known because I've had that one that I'm not going to have a wet sleeping bag, and I cannot vouch for him enough. But one of the next things we bought after that first walk was a new tent. As you can see, Dad has got it out now. Now that tent is a 2-man tent which can fit 2 people, both rucksacks, and a dog in it. That tent has done every single national trail that we have done. I think it was around just under £200. But that is some of the best £200 we've ever spent because it's lightweight, it's small, and it fits into a light bag, which means you can carry it very easily and it is very accessible to access. And the majority of tents you buy for hikes are very simple and easy to build. They're not quite pop-up, but they're as close to that as you'll get with a sophisticated hiking tent. And there is the holy grail when you're camping. That is the kettle. That is the tiniest little kettle you've ever seen. It is absolutely tiddly and it doesn't whistle. All it does is smoke at you and start bubbling out a little bit of water at the front to tell you that it's boiled. And you can generally get 3 cups of tea out of one of those. But we have used that every single walk. And that is also the kettle that when we were on the West Highland Way came back black after a certain trip we had where it got absolutely caked in midges. Now, talking of midges, because we're British, we needed to have as much cover from the midges as possible. Now, I'll just give Dad a moment so we can get it out the bag. But we didn't go for just midge face nets. We went for midge jackets. Now, they are zipped round the face like bee. I can't remember what they're called, bee costumes. That's just going to model it as well. And the jacket has all got elastic cuffs all round. So the only place they can't get up your sleeves, they can't get up under the waist bit, and it's got a zip on the face as well. So you can drop the face bit to have a sip of your tea, and you can also wear that quite comfortably whilst you're out walking if you don't want to get attacked by midges at any point. And I don't remember how much they cost us, but they did wonders for us in Scotland. We cannot fault them in any way possible. They were a lifesaver. When we woke up one morning, there was no wind and there were so many midges that you just couldn't count them all. That was such a lifesaver. Now, that's just some of the equipment we've used. The last bit we've used, because when we first started doing the walks, we were carrying big 2-litre bottles. We were carrying 500ml bottles, as many plastic bottles as we could get hold of to carry water. But it was never really efficient enough whilst you're walking, because you had to stop, pick the bottle out of your rucksack, or ask someone else to do it for you so you could have a drink. So we invested in these, which are called camel packs. Now, you can buy them in a range of sizes. They come from 500ml to a litre, 2 litres, to even 4 to 6 litres, if that's the size you need. Now, they've got the water. The water bag fits into the back of your rucksack, just behind your back. And the tube comes out of the top of the rucksack, which they have holes for in the rucksacks already put in place already. The tube then runs down your shoulder, either side, and then it has a clip on either side of your rucksack straps. You then clip it on, and every time you need a drink, you just unclip it and you have a sip. And we've also found that they last 2 to 3 days if you're quite conserving with the amount of water that you're drinking. And they are so good because they're so flexible as well. You can put it into your rucksack and it molds around everything that's already in there. And they are completely waterproof. They don't leak, and we cannot fault them enough. Really cannot fault them. And those last things, which Dad has just got in his hand there, that is our pack of water purifying tablets. Now, we used those when we were on the West Highland Way, when we were at wild campsites. There was no clean water taps, and there's only so much water you can carry when you're doing the walks. You can't carry 20 litres each because you will be on your knees by lunchtime. So we used water purifying tablets, and we would take water out of the loch, out of a river, anywhere that was near, and we would use that to help take all the nasties out of the water, and then we would boil it, make tea. But you could drink it as it was as well, but it did taste like swimming pool water. So it wasn't as nice. But that's just a few of the things that we took and learnt with us. And from where we started on that one trip to Canterbury, where Dad was knackered because he'd had so much weight on his back in the rucksack, where we were so underprepared. So when we did our final walk, being the South Downs Way, as of so far, where we'd almost nailed exactly what we needed to take and what we didn't need to take. We've also nailed it down to what you need and not what you want. So a lot of it is taking two sets of clothes with you. One set is a walking set, and the other set is your dry set, or dry and wet set. The wet set is the set you wear every day walking. Yes, it does smell by the end of the time you've been walking. It's not great, but once you use that kit, you then know every evening, once you've had a clean shower and you're fresh and you're warm and you're clean and you're nice and relaxed after having a shower, you haven't got to go put those clothes back on. You can put on some fresh, clean, warm clothes for the evening. And each night, you know you're going to have fresh, warm clothes to put on. The only time you can wear that on walking wise is on the last day, because you treat yourself on the last day, because it is the last day of walking normally. But I believe time is running away with us this evening, so I will end it there. But if you do have any questions about any of the equipment or want to know anything for yourself, please either ask us in the Facebook group, drop a message in the chat now, and I will try and answer as many questions as I can. But thank you very much for listening.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. There's no doubt about it. Much as it is horrible climbing into wet kit in the morning, it's worth it just to climb into clean clothes of an evening. And all of a sudden, that bin bag or that plastic bag or whatever that makes sure that you keep that kit dry is worth its weight in gold. You know, I remember watching, I believe, Ewan McGregor, or it was Ray Mears. I think it was Ray Mears, and he made the point that that plastic bag that keeps your dry clothes dry will do more to keep the rain out of your head than anything else you can imagine, maybe except for your head. But brilliant. Anyway, we need to move on. Thursday. No, today's Thursday. Next Monday is the 21st of December. The 21st of December is the winter solstice, Yule. It's one of the most important festivals of the Celtic Wheel of the Year. And we're going to have a major feature on the Celtic Wheel of the Year in our Christmas special on the 28th. But it's, if you like, the Celtic New Year actually begins and ends at Samhain. Samhain, which is known more commonly now as Halloween. But they start the new year at the period of darkness, where the sun, you know, Samhain is the death of the sun king. And you then have a period of darkness where, if you like, the world comes to a slow and a stop period, a bit like I was mentioning that duality at the beginning. And at Yule, at the solstice, is the birth of the Sun King, where the world starts to open up again. The days start to become longer. You know, we've just had the longest night and the shortest day. So the days from the 21st start getting longer. And the dawn starts moving away from us back into that kind of night time. But it's a time when you start thinking about growth. When we start, I mean, bulbs have already started growing. You're starting to see buds on the trees already. We might be going into a snow-covered wilderness. We might be having that old, cold, hard winter. But life is starting to move on. It's a time when we start thinking about what we're going to do this year, how we're going to plan this year, what we want from this year, what we're going to try and achieve, what we're going to look and set ourselves up for. You know, we just start thinking about those germs of ideas as we move forward into, you know, moving on to Imbolc, which is in February, when things start moving on at a bit more of a pace. So on Monday evening, it might be a great time to just sit down, light a special candle, and just take a little bit of time out and think about what you're looking to do in the coming new year. And maybe you might like to just make a couple of rough notes and think about those. And maybe you might like to tell us about a couple of those in our Christmas special, which would be really, really cool. But just take note on Monday that it's a special day. Now, there's one other thing to think about on Monday, which is almost miraculous, dare I say. On Monday, Jupiter and Saturn are going to align together for the first time at the solstice for 800 years. Now, that means we're going to have a winter Christmas star in the sky for the first time in 800 years. So again, as well as sitting down and lighting that candle on Monday, let's hope that the clouds roll back and we can look in the sky and we can see that Christmas star. Would that not be just the most amazing, awesome, fantastic indicator of an amazing year coming, and the most amazing natural signs we can get from this world and this universe to see that winter star? I will be out there, I can guarantee it. And I know what we were saying earlier, Ross, but we can have 2 challenges for this between now and the new year. See if you can find that star. Maybe show us a picture of the star and yourself and a candle, doing some form of celebration of the solstice.
Just had a question come back. Will it be easy to recognise the star?
I can only assume, because I've never ever seen it, it should be pretty noticeable. I'm assuming that if we're talking about the one that just might have led the 3 wise men to Jesus or whatever, it's got to be pretty big. Now, I don't know for definite, so it's going to be a learning experience for all of us. But I would have thought if they flagged it up like this, it's got to be pretty noticeable. But we'll talk about it on the 28th. Okay, now we're coming towards the end of tonight. And as you know, things are going to change in January. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to put these shows together, much as we thoroughly enjoy doing it, and it's a really cool time. So we're going to need to become a membership site, and we'll be moving to the Zoom webinar platform as of January. So in January, those people who join up, they will get the 4 shows that we do a month. They will become, obviously, members of the Facebook group will become closed. And we're also going to be able to offer 15% off anything of the animal homes that we sell, or any of the product. We're looking to get a Walker's survival kit together, and when the government will let us, we'll be going back out and taking people out on guided walks again, or guided countryside experiences again. And there'll be 15% off all of those. That's going to cost £20 a month in January. But if you join before we get to January, then that will be £15 per calendar month. And if you are one of the first, well, one of the founder members, and we've got a few founder memberships still available, as well as all of those goodies, you will also get a copy of each of the 3 books that I've written. That's the 3-Year Pond, okay? That's the 4 Keys and the 5 Senses. And as soon as we have received notification or sign up, we'll grab your address and we'll get them out to you as immediately or as soon as we possibly can. Incidentally, the 3 books separately are more than a month's subscription. So we would love for you to take advantage of that offer. We think it is great value, and we'd love you to get the most out of this for the lowest cost. So if you would like to do that, then either just let us know and we can give you the link to, or go to the Simple Life Circle page on Facebook. There's a link there. Just click on it, follow the form, and you know, we'll get the stuff sorted out really, really quickly. If you're not sure and you want to join up, just let me know, let Ross know, and we will make it as simple for you as we possibly can.
Just so you know, that is Simon at simplelifelimited.co.uk, and that is Ross at simplelifelimited.co.uk. That's LTD, not actual limited. It's Simple Life Ltd.co.uk.
That would be fantastic. And obviously, we'd like the more people that we can encourage to sign up with us, then the more resources we have to improve the quality of what we're doing. We want to hang on to a little bit of that kind of rough and ready feel, but we want to get our videos as sharp as we can, get our presentation as sharp as we can, and yeah, deliver the best we can. So anyway, that's enough of that. We need to move swiftly on now. Emily, who is one of our founder members, she sent us through a Christmas card. Now, in the first case, I thought, that's lovely. Thank you so much. And but I looked at it and it's got a lovely tree on it. And I thought, oh, this is great. You know, and you look at the back and it says, it's got this green paper and everything else. But you open it up, and I'm going to have to take my glasses off to read that. And it says, P.S. When you are finished with this card, please don't throw it away. Plant it and wild flowers will grow to feed the bees. And if you look really closely, you can actually see the seeds in the card. Now, I think that is absolutely amazing. I love it. And we're going to have to, Emily, you have to tell us where these cards are, because we need to get involved with this, because I think it's the most amazing idea going. Because what do we normally do with cards? We put them up and then we recycle them, or we give them to charity. But wouldn't it be cool to be able to put them in the ground and know that we're helping out the planet? I think that's brilliant. I absolutely love it to pieces. So thank you very much indeed, Emily. A, for the card, and B, for a fantastic idea for bees.
You're welcome. If I may, I'm sorry, I know we're running on, but just very quickly for everyone, it's my friend's company. She set it up during lockdown. It's called Green Planet Paper, and she has cards for all occasions. She makes it herself, and they're embedded with local Kent grass and wildflower seeds.
Right. Emily, I'd like an introduction, please.
Yeah, no worries. I'll do that. She's BNI, so that's great.
That's cool. That's cool. We'll have one of those, definitely. So, anyway.
I'm back.
Oh, is there some more chat there, Ross?
There is. Just something come back from one of our other members, Judith. She said, my nephew sent his wedding invitations made from the paper with seeds in it. Great idea.
Brilliant. So, we have run over a little bit, but our next broadcast, and it's the last one that's completely open. Obviously, we will have a system for people who are not members as of January, but the one that is completely open is going to be on the 28th. That's the Monday at the 28th of December at 6 p.m. We'll be starting an hour earlier. And anyone who's been looking around their attendees, Lucy spends the vast majority, if not the entirety of our life, working with and looking after and quite often saving hedgehogs. So we'd like you to get together any questions that you've got for Lucy, and I'm sure she will provide some wonderful and stunning answers. And if she can't, she'll find out, because she's that kind of a person. She'll tell us possibly a little bit about what she does. And if we're very, very lucky, not that I've asked her, she's probably thinking, oh my golly gosh, she might even have a little bit of video of some of her hedgehogs. But we're really looking forward to that, and we are so pleased to have Lucy come and help us out. So Lucy will be with us. We will be looking at the Celtic Wheel of the Year. Got 1 or 2 videos and bits and pieces of some amazing footing of house martins collecting mud from a pool in the summer. Got the wrens in the eagle, and we've got some footage of sparrows using a box that we put up. We've got the hedgerow video that I took earlier in the year, and we've never quite managed to fit in. And if we manage to fit it in as well, I've also got a great footage of little egrets flying around down the brooks locally. So it's going to be an amazing show. We will still probably be in COVID lockdown in some shape or form, but we're still going to keep broadcasting. But we're coming to the end, and I'd like to finish off, as I have a tendency to do, with a little bit of philosophy.
Just before you give the philosophy, we'll give you a challenge to do for the week.
Oh, second one.
Second one for the week. Well, for a little bit longer than a week. This challenge this week is all based around Christmas, and hopefully we can share some of your answers to the challenge on the Christmas special, because the whole idea of this week's challenge is to send us in pictures of real ivy and real holly in your house. We want to see it because it's all festive and it's all part of the festivities way back when, and we don't so much do it anymore with the artificial stuff, but it would be great to see if anyone's got real ivy or real holly in their house this Christmas.
Okay, so maybe also with that burning candle.
And just a reminder, Dad, could you please remind everyone what the first challenge of this broadcast was?
First challenge was of the candle on the winter solstice, and maybe outside looking for the winter star. That would be cool. Brilliant. So this is actually, it's something I came across again the other day. I've heard it before in different ways and different formats, but it kind of really fits with the year that we've had. So you might actually want to have your fingers ready on the chat button. 2 wolves get into a fight. One wolf is full of love and compassion and tolerance, and the other wolf is full of hate, is full of anger, full of vengeance. Which wolf will win the fight? Go. Well, the answer is simple. It's the one that you feed. You feed love, and you feed compassion, and you feed tolerance, it will always, always defeat any other thoughts you ever might have. It's been a difficult year this year, and there is only one way to deal with the years like we've just had, and that is with good things, good thoughts, good cheer, making the best. So as we're going to see you after Christmas, we wish you the most amazing Christmas. We wish you the most positive Christmas. No matter what happens between now and then, be the best, think the best, and look for the most amazing way to get the most positive thing out of it. Feed the good wolf. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you on the Christmas special.
Christmas.
Merry
Have a wonderful, wonderful festive time.
Get well soon, Ross.